like this ahead of time, and thank you for everyone who pointed out no sound on the whole thing. I cannot wait till my comes in, and so I can get all the macros worked up for that one. I'm doing a ridiculous amount of hand wiring and setup ahead of these shows, and so I can't wait till I can plug in 8 different things, have them all ready to rock, and get it going. And I had this one on mute, and that is all on me, man. All right, so hopefully we are good. Oh, you're seeing you're saying still no audio. I'm seeing audio on my end on the program. Are you guys getting audio now? I sure hope so. Because we're putting out audio. I'm seeing it in my monitors right now. If someone would hit the chat and just let me know if you're hearing me now, that would be great. Sound now. Sweet. All right, we have takeoff. I did also get a buffering message right beforehand, so I had to restart a few things. So sorry for the glitches, guys. This would not be the ComicBase Livestream without the obligatory set of insane technical problems that bedevil us every time we try to do this. As you guys know, I am my own producer on this thing, as well as the on-air talent and everything else. So you got what you got, guys. Anyway, what I was trying to say ahead of time is this is a show to talk about all the things that bedevil you, that caused you to call our tech support, which we looked at and say, this isn't actually a ComicBase problem, but if we can help you with these things, we definitely will. And so if there are things that are happening with your computer where you're like, what the living bleep? Honestly, for once, I'm going to leave the floor open. Go ahead and ask. And if we can help you, we will certainly will. But I have a list of our top 5 favorite items that people call us about, where we have to dig in with them and help them find solutions. So hope to share them with you today, and hopefully that'll bring some kind of joy to y'all's life. So we'll take it away. Okay, great. So top thing. First of all, I do want to do a little bit of news at the top of the program. So there is a new build of ComicBase, and let me switch over to the screen just for a moment. If you download the very, very, very latest version of ComicBase, it's version 1607. A couple of things that one does, for the most part, small things compared to last week. Copy and paste into the main title bar works now. There's if you're one of the people with incredibly small screens that had problems with the title window, give this one a shot. This may resolve the issue for you on that. And the big one really has to do with behind the scenes. If you are using ComicBase 1607, or for that matter, any of the last 2 weeks builds, when you save your backup to the cloud, it comes up to us in a way that lets us deal with it much, much, much more efficiently, and so we can generate your reports in it's like it's almost 1/100th of the time it took us to do beforehand, depending on the size of your collection. And it also enables us to do some very, very cool things that as soon as the app stores accept the new revs of our mobile apps, we will get to show off. But there is an interface to the App Store that I cannot wait to show you guys, and I hope you give a chance to give that a shot. If you want to get the downloads for the latest versions, I'll show it again. Go into the Setup menu, go to Preferences, and click the Check for Interim Updates button. If you do that, then you get not just our quarterly big roll-up updates, or all the ones that are there when things are just absolutely, man, we need to fix this now, or there's a brand new feature on the back end, we need support for this now. But you'll get all the little individual things we do as we go along throughout the months. If you then go under the Internet menu and say check for updates, it'll tell you all the little updates we do, and you'll get the latest one. So give that a go, and I guess we're up to 1611 because I pushed one out minutes before showtime. So let that know, go, and we'll take it from there. All right, so back to me. So let me go ahead as I get out of that one. And actually, probably it wasn't a great idea to install that just as we go here, but no, there you have it. We are eating our own dog food here on this show. I'm gonna live with the the version that's 12 minutes old, and we'll roll on this podcast for that one for now. All right, so number one thing, we are not only doing new versions of the ComicBase. There's also been some new versions on the website. Over the next couple of weeks, you will see me spending a lot of my time on back-end stuff. So don't expect a ton of updates to ComicBase itself over the next month or so, but you will see a lot of things change with both ComicBase.com, the mobile app, and AtomicAvenue.com, and I think you're really going to dig a lot of them. If you signed on to ComicBase.com right before the show, you might notice that things look a little bit different even out on the homepage. You'll be seeing a lot of stuff as things go. So let us know how we're doing on stuff. And honestly, if there are things about the websites that have frustrated you, now is a great time to let us know, because this is the time when I'm fully involved with that end of things. So it's a good time to bring those things up so they can get fixed. All right, so let's go down here. All right, website tweaks. We talked about that. Mobile news is coming up. What we're doing right now is we're kind of in limbo in that we've done the work to do major revs to the mobile apps, which once you see it, I think you'll be like, dude, why didn't you do that from the word go? And honestly, there's really good reasons why we didn't do that from the word go. But I think you're going to really dig what we're doing with the mobile apps. But we are waiting for both the Android and the Apple stores to approve our new versions. So as soon as those are approved and we can put them into production, we'll let y'all know. And then if you have that, then the mobile app is going to get a lot more buff in terms of what it can do. It's, well, I mean, it's, I don't want to oversell it too much. It's subtle, but my God, it's important what the difference is between that. And so I'll talk about that hopefully next week. I sure hope so, but that is out of our hands at this point. It relies on the lovely app review folks over at Android and Google. So I'm sorry, Android and Apple. And so if you're watching this, people are waiting. So approve the damn revs. All right. All right, moving on here. Let's see here. John says, what about Malwarebytes? So, all right, first question. So when people call us up with problems, so a little bit of sympathy for the folks who pick up the phone whenever you call anyone for help. I've been told that the proper psychological profile for someone who works tech support long term is that they really care, they empathize with customers, they care a lot about solving their problems. Strangely enough, and this was odd to me, but they don't care that much. In other words, they're not going to get truly upset. I don't know if I'm not staffing up a full tech support department. I don't have legions of people in a call center someplace that are answering your calls. We got the folks who've just been using ComicBase a really long period of time and want to help you out. So I'm not sure if they have the appropriate level of emotional detachment to be most effective according to tech support journals of answering your calls. One thing we do, and this is something that maybe we shouldn't, but we do anyway, is when it becomes clear during the call that you don't really have a ComicBase problem, but you've got your disk is failing, or you've got 2 gigs of RAM and you're trying to run Windows 10 and a million other things and ComicBase, and so things aren't working, or whatever else is going haywire. To the extent we can, we're going to try to get you over that hump. Only if the call goes on a really long time will we sit there and say, yeah, dude, this is kind of a Best Buy problem. But honestly, we want to leave you happy at the end of the day. We want to leave you with one less problem than you called us with, because that's what makes us feel good, right? So anyway, we kind of keep a list internally of what are our big problems that people call about. The number one cause, which isn't the cause you think you're calling about, but which winds up being the issue at the end of the day, I gotta say, is at this point security software. So if your computer's running slowly, if ComicBase is being weird, if things don't install right, if you're getting bizarre file permission problems, if if your internet isn't connecting right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's like 15 different problem vectors that you might be calling in on, but the common thread under all of them is your security software is going bonkers on you, or it's blocking things it shouldn't be blocking. So let's talk for a moment. I don't want to go too long on this one, but it's important. Let's talk for a moment about security software. So look, most people who buy a computer these days, it came pre-installed with one or more different types of security software. And if it didn't, God knows the world has been made you crazy, with fear of all the bad guys trying to do in your computer. And by the way, I'll vouch for that. It's true. There are a million script kiddies in every part of the globe that are trying to reach in, breach your computer, steal your stuff, spam you with threatening emails, whatever the heck the thing is. Yeah, there's a ton of malefactors out there. That is their business. That's what they do. Well, so against that has risen another business, which is people who are there to, quote unquote, solve your problems. And I say quote unquote because my experience with security software is a little jaded, in that our bench line, I'll put it this way. So I came to Nashville, Tennessee, and God bless them, Nashville has a lot of wonderful, wonderful things going for them. The music scene is off the hook, and you can't believe it. But man, oh man, they can't make a pizza to save their lives. My bench line for any pizza joint in the entire Nashville area is it better than Domino's? And 70% of the people I will encounter in a restaurant, the answer is, yeah, no. Anyway, my bench line for security software is installing your security software and running it. Is that as bad or worse than having a virus myself? And for 70% of the security software we've seen out there, the answer is no. The burden the security software puts on your computer is so intensive in terms of how intrusive it is, how much it wants to be constantly updating itself, how much it's going to be pounding the devil out of your disk while it scans every file, 8 ways a Sunday, how many installs it screws up because it's blocking things it shouldn't block, etc. I'm going to say 70% of the security software out there is, yeah, I'd rather go with nothing whatsoever and take the hit with the odd virus than install that software and get the effect of having a virus. That's how bad the scene is. But for most of us, we didn't actually make the choice of whether we installed this software, that software, the other thing. It came with our computer. So I got my brand new computer from Best Buy, and it came with Norton, or it came with Malwarebytes, or it came with McAfee, or whatever else. The reason that is because McAfee or Norton, whoever, they spiffed Best Buy or whoever made your computer a couple of bucks to stick their software for free on your machine. Now, free is never exactly free, right? So the deal is the free version will run for 30 days or 90 days, and you got the free trial. And at the end of that, they're going to try to get you to say, well, we protected you so much, and we made such a show of protecting you during that time. Surely you'll want to pay the extra 30, 40, 90, whatever bucks it is to get our protection full time. And so the security software that gets bundled onto computers tends to be very, very showy about what it's doing. It tends to be very, very accurate. Firewall, check every email attachment you've got, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it makes a really big point about showing that it's doing something. The problem is it acts for the most part like an over-officious bureaucrat who's really, really concerned with proving how worthy they are so you don't fire them, but honestly is in the way more than often than not. So my number one advice on security software is, look, if you haven't been bit with a full-on virus attack, right? If all you've really been doing with all the updates and all foo you've been dealing with your security software is, either cycling between turning things on and off to update or whatever else, if it hasn't actually saved you from anything in particular, consider getting a virus software that's less obtrusive, that occupies less of your computer's time. It's the number one thing you can do to take down both the performance load on your computer. Let me show you my friend Task Manager. I meant to get this a little bit earlier, but let's hit it just a touch early. Now I thought I switched my taskbar over to the main window. Hey, give me a second to rejigger a couple things here. Okay, so all right. So if we go down here to Task Manager, and by the way, everyone should know how to do this particular move right now. Click on your Start menu and type TASKMGR. All right, that'll bring up Task Manager. You can also get to it by hitting Control-Alt-Delete and choosing the Task Manager from there. But hitting the Start menu, just typing Task Manager is a really great thing to do. All right, if you look at the Task Manager at any given moment, your computer will have, I have 10 apps that are nominally open on my computer, and honestly, I didn't open almost any of them except for ComicBase. The other ones just started up when the computer started up. But then I also have 208 background processes running at the same time on my computer. There's 208 programs that I didn't necessarily ask for at all. I didn't even know they were there that are running, and now it's 209 on my computer. Now, I recognize a bunch of these. This is 1Password. It's my password manager. Acronis has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 10 different processes running. Acronis is the thing that images my hard drives to back them up, but they also have some kind of antivirus software built in. They have any number of other things. There's typically routines in here that will make sure that everything's updated correctly and so forth. Adobe has different, color helpers. Brave, my browser has 5 or 6 windows open, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on and on. It's an amazing amount of stuff. The good news in my case is that if you look down this left-hand column about what's using my CPU, almost all of those 208 processes are using nothing. Basically what happens is every few minutes they'll check in with a server and say, hey, is there a new version of me available? Or they'll do whatever they do, but they're not spending any measurable amount of my computer's time in order to do it. Thank God for that. My overall CPU load right now is only 4%, which means I'm good to go. I'm ready to rock. My disk is at 0. My network's at 0. My GPU. The GPU is your graphical processing unit. It's also running very comfortably at, I got a lot of room to run here. If you go into the task manager and you find out that your antivirus software is running 10-15% all the time, or if every time you install something it suddenly bumps up so it's running 30-40, I've seen 100% for 3 or 4 minutes running as you go to install something, all you're doing when you're waiting around is you're waiting on your ridiculous. And so find antivirus software which isn't as bad, again, as having a 10-year-old machine or having a virus on your machine taking up all your time. We are not in the business of officially recommending antivirus software or anything else like that. So I'm just going to tell you, from me, Pete Bickford, not as Pete Bickford, representative of human computing. I'll tell you what I use, and I'll tell you what the folks in our office use. We use Windows Security. We use the built-in stuff that's built into Windows. We do it for 2 reasons. One, it routinely comes out on top of all the antivirus tests as far as finding things that are actually threats to your computer. So if the people who test these things in labs will load up computers with all sorts of all sorts of bad things, and they'll run different antivirus packages to see who found them and who didn't. The one that routinely wins is Windows Security. The other reason is because you'll notice my CPU load was next to nothing. In other words, it does what it needs to do without leveling my machine. On the opposite end of things, we've seen, and I'm not going to name them right now, but very prominent antivirus software that you guys have all probably seen on your machines. We've seen things where people had like Alienware laptops. I mean, we're talking like $2,000-$3,000 laptops that they were running like they were like from the 1990s in terms of how fast they were running. And it was because their security software was occupying routinely 80-90% of their load all the time, just doing stuff. Anyway, so I'm going to give you very controversial advice right off the top. If your computer's running like a dog, consider uninstalling. And I do mean uninstalling. Don't turn off, because also if you go into Task Manager and you said turn off my antivirus software, you'll notice that it's still running, and in many cases is still taking the same load it was taking before you said turn off. Consider temporarily uninstalling your current antivirus software and finding something else. That is probably the best advice I can give you if your antivirus software is causing you a woe. Anyway, so that is general advice. I ran into a bit of a thing. I want to dial in specifically because the question came up about Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes we honestly had never heard of prior to 2 years ago. It got popular at some point there's a million people generating antivirus software. It got popular a few years back. There was a free version that it was, also a version that was getting pre-installed in a lot of places. But it came to our attention because it did something that we've never seen another program do, which is it actively destroyed databases. It's like, what? And what was happening is shortly before the release of ComicBase 2020, we found out that you could take a regular computer with nothing on it, have a database that we knew was perfectly good, optimize the database, compact and verify, everything's right, everything's running well, perfect. Install Malwarebytes. Use the program for just enter one thing, compact and verify the thing. It would destroy the database. It would become an uncompactable database. as soon as you did that. Now, I don't know why. I don't know if they fixed it. The idea that my antivirus software would actively destroy files on my computer is insane to me. The good news for us is we switched to ComicBase 2020. It was based on an entirely different database format, which seems to be completely unaffected by malware bytes, so thank God for that. But, and honestly, I can only speculate as to why malware bytes was getting in the way of ComicBase 2017 and before databases. Part of it, and this is a little bit of a black art, is, so we have this vision that inside all of our antivirus softwares, corporate headquarters, there's people standing around a big, NORAD-style, command screen, monitoring threats from around the globe. It's like, we've got a new outbreak of, EPAP-C over in, in Norway here, and this virus signature is this. We're on it. They're tracing the code and they're figuring out its attack vector, and they're putting out patches to their stuff, to make it happen. That's not what is happening almost any of the time. What is happening most of the time these days is they're using a thing called machine learning, which is they're looking for patterns in what a program is doing, and they're trying to correlate that with things that they mark as risky. If that happens, they either send a note back to home saying, hey, check this out, or more frequently, they put an absolute cold stop to it. So if they see your computer writing certain things, they'll say, whoa, 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 that looks fishy to us. We're just going to stop that in its tracks and and treat it as if it's a virus or whatever else. Later on, maybe people will figure out that no, that thing that was writing was perfectly legitimate, and normal, and you've actually just destroyed part of my spreadsheet or whatever the heck you did. At which point they will release a patch which turns that part off. But the vast majority of virus signatures that get collected or that get added to these things it isn't like a human diagnosed particular attack vectors on things. It was a computer that figured out this looks fishy. And so I'm speculating on, like, why would malware bytes destroy access databases, which was what it was doing back a few years ago. And anything can be true, followed by a few other bytes that look a little bit like a virus it encountered once 10 years ago or something, and it says, whoa, better stop that. And by stopping, the right in the middle corrupts the database. Watch out for stuff like that. It's insane. Anyway, that is all I want to say for the moment about virus software, unless you guys have a recommendation. But yeah, I would like to malware bytes guys about that. I've never seen a issue before or since in my life where the antivirus software, I've seen antivirus software really mess up your computer's performance. I've seen it do any number of other things. I've seen it I've had to turn off Acronis's active virus protection on my own computer because I would just be like checking my mail and opening up something from Home Depot, and it would go into a hard lock state that sometimes it would be like, no, it's fine. Open the email from Home Depot. Really, it's cool. I want to find out about the drywall sale. I mean, there's literally nothing going on. But it would just, again, it's machine learning, would trip on something that struck it as funny, and depending on whether I got to it in time or not, it would hard lock my computer. Honestly, 3 times is all you get to do it to me on that before I turn you off and I find something better. And the something better that I personally have chosen, Windows Security, the Windows Defender. It's built into Windows. It's free. Another great thing to say about it, but it works and it does it imperceptibly. So anyway, let's leave the virus stuff for now. I've beaten that one to death. OneDrive. Oh my goodness. All right, yeah, that one. I had that one for about 5 items down, but let's talk about OneDrive. Okay, so I wrote an article about this for the website a while back, talking about Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, anyway, there's half a dozen other utilities that are meant there to back up your stuff as you're using it. And they all work basically the same way. The idea is, and let me show you on mine if I can. Let me switch over to the computer. The idea is I've got a little app running down here in the corner. In this case, I use Dropbox. And what it does is it's got a program running all the time, and it maintains a folder, in this case called Dropbox, which anything I put in that folder gets magically synced up to a storage space on Dropbox's cloud. So all I got to do is copy something here. I'll copy, some of the show music here from Dark Fantasy Studios. copy that into there, and within a matter of minutes, the server on Dropbox's main site will know about Dark Fantasy Studios Winterheart. All right, so good news on that. So great. So if my machine goes down, great. I get a new machine. I download everything from Dropbox again, and my stuff is safe. So these things are incredibly useful and used properly. The problem comes when you use them improperly. So let's talk about what these things are actually doing. So when I say there's a magic folder on your computer, what's really happening is there's a program on my computer, in this case Dropbox, which is always watching the contents of the Dropbox folder. And anytime it sees anything change in the Dropbox folder, it talks to its server, and it says, hey, there's a new version of that Dark Fantasy Studios file down here. Have you got it up in your cloud right there? And if the cloud says, no, never saw it before, it says, oh, well, here, take it. And it copies the file up over the internet to the cloud. Now, if the cloud says, yeah, I already got it, and it says, well, what's your version from? It says, yeah, from today about, 4:15 or so. Oh, okay, same version I got. We're good. Leave it be. It does nothing at all. All right. Or it could say, hey, because I might have more than one computer, right? I might have a second copy of this Dark Fantasy Studios, theme song from 4:23 today, which I upload from another computer, and it says, hey, I noticed there's a change on this thing. My version's from 4:15. Oh, my version's from 4:23. Oh, in that case, you take my copy, right, and overwrite the local copy with the one that was on the cloud. All right, so it's a pretty simple model, but it has profound implications for how things work on your computer. And in Dropbox, not such a big deal. The Dropbox folder typically is a special folder that you have to copy things into normally. You have to know that you're putting them in there, and so it's kind of off to the side. It's just like a magic gateway to the internet in terms of putting stuff there. The one that's the devil is OneDrive. It's a Microsoft product. It's put out by Microsoft in the exact same way as OneDrive or as Google Drive, or there's a magic folder that if you copy anything to this folder, it copies it up to the server. If there's anything new on the server, it copies it down to your local hard drive, right? All the same. Except that the magic folder they chose, by default, is documents. As in, the folder that has all your stuff in it all the time on your computer. So by default, using the default installation of if you respond to one of those millions of ads that Microsoft will spam you with, which says, hey, try Office 365, it's wonderful, it's like having all the tools of Office, but it's cheaper. If you do that and you install it and you don't ever check the OneDrive settings, what it does by default is it will go and reassign everything that's in your documents folder. It'll try to copy it straight up to the cloud. That's one part. And then we've seen alternate installations of Office 365. I don't know if it's a version thing or whatever else, where what they will do is actively remap your documents folder. So if you look at your documents folder on your computer, you'll notice that it's not, C:/users/myname/documents anymore. It's now C:/users/myname/OneDrive. They took your entire contents of your documents folder, moved it inside their own folder, and remapped where documents go so that it's going to their special folder. All right, so, okay, sounds a little weird. It's weird that they never asked you about any of that, but what's it mean, right? Well, what it means in particular is that anytime the default save location, it's supposed to be this way. It's been this way for 15 years. Every application maker, whether it's us, whether it's, Adobe, or whatever else, is you're supposed to default where you save things to the documents folder. It's the one folder on your C drive we know we're allowed to write to. And especially as Microsoft has ratcheted up the security on various other things to keep viruses and other things at bay, you can't count on there being another writable folder on your C drive other than documents. So that's where everything is always going to default saving to. Well, what they've done is they've now said everything that you're default saving to goes to the cloud. Well, okay, doesn't that just mean everything gets backed up? That's good, right? All right, well, it would, like spreadsheets or letters to mom or things like that. Documents that by their nature, when I open them up, they're in one state on my disk. I load them into my computer's memory, and if I change them and save them, they get written down to my disk and then copied off to the cloud. Just as much as it needs to, because the database could be gigabytes in size, and so it only loads as much as it needs to do its work. Then if I go and I say that little change, back to the main file, right? Well, now, if this thing is sitting in my documents folder and OneDrive is watching to say, hey, anything changed down there? What happens is every single time I go to another record in the database, OneDrive will again answer that, oh yeah, I just changed the database file. At which point, it's going to try to take this massive file, this gigabyte-sized file that we've got, which is ComicBase, and copy it up to the OneDrive cloud. This is a disaster, because what you'll notice immediately is that we'll immediately start, getting your network will go nuts. It'll be fully saturated with the upstream traffic trying to get this massive database, backed up to the cloud. Every single time you go to another title, change a single quantity, do anything at all, it makes a change to the master database file, and it will always try to sync that thing up. So this thing will be pounded to death as you're using ComicBase. Worse is if it ever, because the database is, remember, it's partially in your computer's memory at any given moment, it's partially on the disk. The part that's backing up is whatever is left on the disk. Well, if I made a change to the computer's memory, but I haven't written it down fully to the disk yet, I haven't flushed the buffer, I haven't done whatever else, the part that you grabbed, because I haven't closed the database yet, might not be a coherent copy of the database. So if I took this backup that is spending all this time transmitting up to the cloud, and I try to open it, it could be a corrupted copy. It could be a locked copy. It could be something that's completely unusable. The only time a database is fully usable is when you've made a copy once it's closed. So once I've taken everything that's in memory, written it back down to disk, at that point, if you copy it someplace else, then you've got a full copy of the data times it's doing. And it gets worse from there. I mean, like, you think, what could be worse than that? So I'm spending all my computer's time copying up things that might not be any good at the end of the day. Well, when it's in the process of copying that stuff, it will try to place a file lock on the entire database. So if you guys have been getting a message saying, well, your database is locked, make sure nothing else is using it. It's funny because we were thinking, well, what's allowed to use ComicBase? Well, the only other program that we know is allowed to use ComicBase other than ComicBase is Sidekick. But Sidekick tries really hard not to, spin up while ComicBase is running, because ComicBase, Sidekick knows about ComicBase, ComicBase knows about Sidekick. But it doesn't know about either of these things? OneDrive. OneDrive will happily try to place a lock on the entire file while it's doing its copy. And at which point, if you try to change any new data, you'll be like, oh no, file's locked, you can't change it now. That'll happen to you until the file transfer is done and it releases the lock. In the meantime, also, the file copy that it copied up also probably is locked. So if you downloaded it back again, it's probably in a mirror. The worst case version of the nightmare is, let's say you've got a pretty fast internet connection, you can copy things up pretty quickly, but your clock's just a little off. So OneDrive thinks the clock is now 4:30. You think the clock is 4:40, right? So I copy something and it says, all right, hey, I got to make a new change here, right? So I think it's 4:40 and I change the quantity of Snake Eyes Dead Game number 1 from 0 to 1. It copies up to here. And the problem is, I think it's 4:40. OneDrive thinks it's 4:30. So when it gets the copy, it says, it's an old copy, 4:30. Okay. But then I go and I change something else, and it'll say, well, I got and I got a copy here from 4:40 or 4:30, and it tries to copy it back down. Because the clock is out of sync. It thinks it's got a more recent copy than you do, depending on when you save things or not. I'm sorry, I told this story very badly, but what can happen in the worst case scenario is you'll do some work. If OneDrive's clock is a little different than your clock, it conceivably will then say, oh, wait a minute, I've got a more recent copy of your file. Let me help you out. Copy the file straight back down to you. You open up ComicBase again and say, wait, what happened to my work? And OneDrive says, you're welcome. I helped because I gave you the more recent copy that I had because my clock says a different time than yours. Anyway, what is the lesson of all this stuff? Well, lesson number 1 could be turn off OneDrive. Again, OneDrive absolutely overstepped their bounds by not ever asking you to take possession of your core documents folder. They never ask you. Most people don't know it's installed. You could do a lot worse than just literally uninstalling OneDrive this moment under add remove programs. If you want to keep OneDrive, what is absolutely imperative that you do is go down to the OneDrive control panel down here. So it's this little cloud down. So you go down to the little taskbar notification icons here, look for the little cloud. Right-click, go to Settings, then go to Choose Folders, and make sure that either Documents is not chosen as a folder that you want to back up, or if Documents is chosen, that you open it up and make sure you uncheck the Human Computing ComicBase Databases folder. In other words, leave ComicBase out of it. So if you want to back up stuff, don't do it from the folder that you're actively working in ComicBase at the time. Otherwise, all this nonsense will happen to you, and you will be a very sad person indeed. So uncheck this folder automatically. All right, all right, now let's say, I like the idea of cloud backup, and, OneDrive came with my machine, I paid for it. How do I use this thing for real without screwing myself over? The answer is, in ComicBase, don't ever work with your active database out of OneDrive, but it's okay to have it save your backups to someplace that OneDrive will back up. Because remember, if it backs up some database that's closed, so if the database is open, it loads a little bit of the stuff off the disk into RAM right here. Yes. This hand is documents. Don't let it automatically back up stuff in your documents folder, and certainly don't let it back up. And let me put ComicBase on the screen here. Go under Setup, go to Preferences, and the default for ComicBase is to save all backups to the same folder as the original database. Change that. Go ahead and say, I want to save all my backups to, and then pick a folder that OneDrive can pick up. Matter of fact, I could say, go ahead and save all my backups to my OneDrive folder right there. And you'll notice that I didn't let OneDrive back up my documents. I made it, work from a separate OneDrive folder. But if I want to save all my backups there, that's perfectly fine. Because then when I exit ComicBase, it'll have written a copy, OneDrive can back up that copy, and it's not getting in the way of my active database. That is the OneDrive saga. I realize this might have been a little confusing. It does get a little twisty, but if you guys have comments, please ask in the chats. A wonderful thing. Okay, so let's see here. So I understand we're getting some buffering issues. I'm looking at my control. We're putting out... Our rate looks good going to their server, so yeah, I don't know. We're rolling along pretty good. We haven't dropped any frames going to their server. If it's coming down weird, maybe try closing your browser, launch it again. Maybe that will help some. I'm not sure. If not, go ahead and wait for the live stream to get encoded on their server and watch it that way. It won't be live, but at least the server will have caught it up. Sorry about that, guys. That one is beyond my control because that one's on the YouTube end. Sorry about that. All right, so let me go and see how we're doing with other things here. Give me just a second. Yeah, well, yeah, no, it's yeah, I'm gonna actually stop and start the stream just momentarily. Let's see if this helps at all. Well, let's see if their server can latch onto that. Let's hope, and we'll take it from there. All right. Next question. Disks going slow. What do you do if your disk is going slow? So I've probably beaten this one to death on previous episodes. The number one thing that you're waiting for when you're waiting for anything on a computer is your disk. So at least when you're using ComicBase. Now, the way to find out what you're waiting for is go down here to your task manager again. So go to Start, and again, TASKMGR. It'll tell you what your computer's doing at any given moment. So at the moment I'm running at 6% CPU, so nothing's there. My disk is next to nothing. My network is ticking along next to nothing. So everything's good as far as my computer is concerned. I get a tiny amount of CPU load, but nothing much. When you see your CPU go to 70-80%, that's when you start noticing that things are starting to drag for you. But right now, this thing's running like a champ. If you know, let me see if I can, try to think if there's something big I can copy just to make my disk do some work. I'm gonna, let me go and grab my entire ComicBase database folder and make my disk do some work here. Okay, documents, human computing, ComicBase database. All right, so we got, of all the databases I've got on my machine, I got 24 gigs in here. All right, let's just make a copy. All right, copy, and I'll let you see this. Paste. All right, so it's making a copy of all that stuff, and You see my disk ticked up to 12%, right? Still not a big deal, right? And I've got a program called TerraCopy that's doing my copying right now. But you also notice I'm getting like 890 megs per second on my disk. All right, I'm running what's called an SSD, a solid state disk drive. All right, these are decent numbers, right? I'm copying big files and it's ticking along. You know, it's slowing down a little bit here, but still 620 megs per second. I will live with it, right? All right, if you look into Task Manager, things are taking a long time to run, and you're getting numbers that are like 2 megs per second, you got a problem. All right, number one problem that's probably going on if something like that happens to you is typically, you know, the first thing I would do is say, can I turn off my antivirus? Because it could be that the antivirus software is trying to check every single byte that's being, you know, written to disk. If so, it's going to slow things up remarkably. It could also be a case that my disk is not all that. If I have a conventional disk, particularly in a laptop, you know, you really want to see numbers that are like 20, 30 megs per second, even from a laptop drive. If you're seeing numbers like 2, your laptop drive, it could be getting very full and being very inefficient as far as writing. Gigabyte copy is now done. But it could be getting very inefficient. If it is full, try to, you know, free up some of it. But it also could be starting to fail. One thing that you can do if you suspect that your disk is starting to fail is come up under here, and this is an obscure one. I mean, it's hard to use. I'll just say it. So it's called the Event Viewer, EVENT, and so you'll see at the top there, Event Viewer. All right. This one, if you like being scared to death about your computer going to hell, this one will do it for you. What this is this is there to log every interesting and or weird thing that your computer is doing at all with those, in my case, 208 processes they're running at the same time, etc. Every login I've done, every time something asked for security privileges, etc., etc. This will expose all the foo that's going on behind the scenes. The thing you want to dial into initially is have a look at this top line thing here. Right down at the top, it'll say, okay, critical errors, start there, and see, are there any things in the last 24 hours that are worthy of your attention, right? All right, in the last hour, nothing much, but okay, so we had an application error in this case back some time ago. Let's have a look at what that was. Here are the application errors that have happened to my computer lately. So I had my ATEM software control go funny on me at 4:01 p.m. I had Skype go funny on me at 2:43, etc. These are app crashes right here. What you're looking for in particular, if you're worried about your disk, is you want to look at your system, and you're looking for errors that have to do with your disk. Now, some of the stuff like, you know, these guys here, there's a process called DCOM, distributed COM. The application-specific permission do not grant local activation. Honestly, it's not a cause for concern whatsoever. It's as close to perfectly normal as you can come up with. If you wanted to devote the rest of your life, you try to annihilate every strange thing like this that happens on your computer, and you will be disappointed, because some of these things, the answer after you've researched them for hours is, yeah, they just happen sometimes. Don't worry about that. But if you're looking at your Windows system log and you're seeing lots and lots of errors, especially having to do with the disk utility right there, could mean your disk is going out on you. If it's taking a really, really long time to write, if it's talking about needing to do retries, things like that, then it's time to get a new hard drive. And if you do get a new hard drive, get yourself an SSD. At the very least, this is interesting to look around it at some point, the Event Viewer, just to see what's supposedly really going on with your machine, even if it just winds up being absolutely impenetrable as far as what you're doing. It's the place to start if you're trying to do any kind of deep diagnosis on your computer. All right, and by the way, also, there's a lot of things in here that are just perfectly normal. You see the eye-level events, the info. This is like, Windows installer installed the product based 4K archive edition, which I did right before showtime. Yeah, that's just normal. Just so the installer got done. An error over here. This is the one where my ATEM software control panel, the one I used for streaming, went funny on me beforehand. I had to launch it again. Anyway, things, you just click the shipped, thing, and then you can go back and see the things that you've already shipped. But if you're thinking about what I think you're thinking about, it's really just a matter of over on the right hand side whether you want to show the shipped orders you've got, or the canceled orders. You've got, by default, it doesn't show those because they're typically, not particularly interesting afterwards. It wants to kind of clear down your view, but that's a thing. Okay, if that's not it, ask me later. We'll do an Atomic Avenue stream at some point. All right. I got a question from ERB1211. Can I go over the point system used when it comes to submitting new or corrected data? What things are worth points and not worth points? Pretty simple. It could be more complicated if we want to make it, but we haven't so far. When you go in ComicBase, and let me go ahead and pull up ComicBase, and I will show it. Where are we at here? Did I close ComicBase? I guess I did. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and launch ComicBase again. Give me a second. All right, so when I go in ComicBase and I say I've got a correction here, so let's say the storyline for Dead Eyes Snake Eyes Dead Game. Let's say it's Last to Die, right? I just made that up. Okay, it isn't really. I just made that up. All right, so if I make any change in something there and I want to say that's a correction, what I do is I make the change, then I click over here on the far left, I right-click, and I say Submit New or Corrected Data. All right, I'm not going to do this right now because that would go to the editors and it would confuse them terribly. At which point, it's going to do one of two things. At the very least, it'll say thanks for the data. We'll look over it and see if that gets to the next update, and if so, we'll give you a correction point for it. And it might also, if I had a new picture for Last Die that was bigger than the one we have on file in ComicBase, it'll say, oh, hey, you've got a new picture for that one, and it's bigger than what we've got. Can we have it? And then if you say yes, then you immediately get a picture correction point. It's called a picture point. But when you see the totals on the leaderboard, you'll see it actually is the sum of your picture points and your correction points. We know how much you did of one or the other, but it gets reported as if it's the same thing. That only happens if you've got a bigger picture than we've got, or we never had a picture at all. So go ahead and scan your pictures at 300 dpi, and that's as big as we're ever going to go. So that'll let you know. All right. For the correction, on the other hand, like the one where I said Last to Die, what goes on that is you don't immediately get any correction points for that one initially. What happens is it goes to our editors. Our editors have a special admin copy of ComicBase, which has a control panel built into it, which says, all right, for Snake Eyes Dead Game #1, here's the information we've got, and here's the storyline that we've got, which in that case was nothing. Here's the storyline this guy submitted, and he said it was called Last to Die. And so the editors, they could, if you changed other things, it'll highlight those as well. But the editors are either going to highlight and say, well, okay, I believe him on the storyline, but I don't believe him on the cover price, or I believe him on this, but I don't believe him on that. They can either tap or in or out different things. They could overwrite it completely, or they could just go down to the bottom of the screen and say either reject all or accept all from you, saying, yeah, you seem like a trustworthy guy. Your record's good. I'm going to take everything he's got. Now, anytime anything at all gets accepted, it counts for a point. If you changed 18 things and they get accepted, it's still 1 point. Yes, there have been people who have gamed that in the past where they will go and submit 1 million cover dates, and then we'll accept them. They get a bunch of points, and they'll say, and we'll submit that they all feature a certain character, in which case they get more points too. I'm not saying the system is perfect. It's, again, it's a bit of an honor system kind of thing, and honestly, it's bragging rights more than anything. If you wanted to be a complete optimizer around your own points, I guess you could do that, but it's it's a little silly. The only thing you really get out of being on the leaderboard board, other than a standing offer, I will buy you a beer if you're in the top 200 at Comic-Con, is you just get bragging rights. So don't submit 80 different versions of the same correction. It's just annoying. If you do enough of it, I guess our editors will probably tune you out. But that's what it comes down to is anytime we take anything of yours and accept it, it becomes a correction point. But the picture points you get automatically. That's the long way of saying that. All right. Okay, and Gregory just explained the same thing. Buffering again. Hey guys, sorry man, I don't know what to tell you about the buffering. It's what it is. Hopefully YouTube will be better. Okay, so oh, and John got the screensaver to work. Nice to hear. Okay. Let's see. We'll be able to occasionally cycle with bigger pictures with a 3x1 grid along with the standard 6x2 grid it shows. You only get a 6x2 grid? That's interesting. So the screensaver on my machine, let me see if I can kick that out, since we're talking about this right now. So if I go to screensaver, and this is kind of fun to do in the middle of a live stream, I'm going to run a screensaver. Is this thrilling TV or what? So what it is, I went down my screensaver settings. I chose the ComicBase cover gallery. And guys, if you don't have this in your settings, don't worry. It just means that you don't have the archive edition. This is an archive only thing. So if I say preview on this, what it does on my screen, at least, and this is a 1920 by 1080 monitor you're looking at on the right here, is you get a grid that looks a bit like this. Now what it did is, and I'm actually running this on 3 different screens at the moment, is it loaded up, I want to, some crazy number, I want to say it's like a few thousand or 5,000 pictures. For every monitor has its own set. Based on what my criteria were, and it randomizes them somewhat. So I could let this guy roll, and over time, it's going to cycle through a bajillion different versions. So, you know, anyway, this rolls forever. If you see a cool cover and you want to know what it is, just mouse over it. It'll tell you, it'll give you a little tooltip. That's Harbinger number 24 and so forth. And it goes until you click. That's pretty much how the screensaver works. It's neat. It's oddly mesmerizing, particularly in on large displays, or if you have multiple displays. Because, like I say, the set you get for each monitor is independent, and it'll go for as many monitors you've got. So if you get something crazy like 3 monitors like that, there you go. It'll do that. Anyway, the size is it's meant to be. There was a standard ComicBase size. For the initial pictures in like the Pro Edition. That's the size it uses for the initial grid, because we knew that most people would have, at least back in the day, you'd have more of that size of picture than anything else. And then if you had archive size pictures and you've got the screensaver option set to show bigger pictures full screen, then what it'll do is, as it goes and chooses the next picture it wants to show, if it's a big one, it goes black and shows it full screen and does that. Or if you prefer just for it to cycle the checkerboard, you can have it do that as well. Okay, that is all the information about that. Yes, the top 3 people on the leaderboard get a brand new Tesla. Yes, as soon as Elon Musk buys our company, that'll be a real thing. Okay. Let's see how we're doing here. We gotta wrap it up. Wow, I think we're probably gonna do. I think we'll probably revisit this one like as a part 2 some other time. I want to show you guys one other thing, because this was, I gotta say, I had kind of an off week in terms of doing tech calls. Yeah, like I say, I am one of those guys who I'm not necessarily well qualified to be a tech support guy, because I tend to care too much. And yeah, like I say, it's apparently the people who make call centers, the profile they're looking for is someone who cares about a user's problem, but not so much they get upset when it's, you know, they care, but they don't really care. In other words, they're willing to keep the call moving. They're willing to, you know, get things going. And if it doesn't work out, they're like, whatever, move on to the next one. And most of the guys who work for me, they will pick up the phone call. Typically, I'm going to say our attitude is generally like, hey, this guy's got a problem. This guy spent money with us. We want to help him out. And we'll stay on the phone or do whatever we got to do with you. I've done 2.5 hour phone calls with people in order to, you know, get whatever is going on wrong with you sorted. So I'm going to do that if that means that I leave you happy at the end of the day and I work out your problem. So that can be a problem for us, because at the end of a 2.5 hour call, I'm pretty shredded. But like I say, we're trying to get this whole thing done. Anyway, the thing I wanted to say, and I did have a point, is I had a call earlier this week where I just felt like, man, I'm just off my game. I took about 6 or 7 tech calls that day, and I felt like, man, I love the ones where I can solve your problem in 5 minutes and send you on your way and everyone's happy and it's all smiles all around. And the ones where, like, I work on it with you for 20, 30 minutes and there's some other thing going on with your machine, like maybe you've got a bad internet connection, maybe you've got whatever else, it just makes the whole process glacial. And even though it's an easy problem, I know exactly what to do to make it sort it out, I'm unable to do the thing that makes it all better for you because something else is going on with your machine. This is the thing that actually triggered this particular call. This particular call was centered around the idea of, I've installed all my pictures and I don't see them, but I know I installed them. And what had happened is, and I'll show the problem here. So pull up ComicBase. So all the pictures in this case, you know, so Snake Eyes Dead Game. You've all seen that I can right click on this, show the picture folder. And these all live, in this particular case, And let me make this guy really big so you can see the full path. So in my particular case, they live in a folder called, C users Peter Bickford. Now, on most of y'all, what this would be C users public, right? I share my pictures over the internet with folks that I collaborate with. So my pictures folder is different than yours, but this would typically be C users public, and then pictures IDW, Snake Eyes, Dead Game, and then the pictures all live in there. The problem that this guy was having is that he had gone up under here, and you go to File Tools, you manage your pictures and movies. He had installed his pictures in some place that wasn't the default location. I'm going to reset it so you can see what the default location looks like right there. He'd installed them, but then he'd switched, either accidentally or not, he'd switched where his pictures were stored. And so even though he had a bajillion picture files that were kicking around on his computer someplace, they weren't where ComicBase was going to go look for them. Now the answer is, if you knew where you'd installed them, you just go up under here and you say, well, I installed them over here, and you pick the folder and you're done, and your pictures all show up and you're good. And what I was trying to do to help this poor guy out is say, well, you installed the pictures. I don't want to install another 700,000 pictures on your poor machine. None of us wants that. That's no good. But we need to find where your pictures went, and none of us know. So I had an idea. I thought, well, easy. I'll pick the weirdest name I can come up with, and we'll just look for that as the name of a comic title. And if you got that one, I know where all the rest of your pictures are because I can just go up the folder hierarchy. I'll know where they all are. So I said, okay, well, where's Zot? And so I said, okay, and we went to Windows Find, and you can get to Windows Find, and you just open up a window, and you just choose a hard drive like that, and you type in Zot, right? Boom, boom, boom. Whatever you type, it'll come up with its thing. So anyway, so in this particular case, we had taken forever. It was grinding for like 20 minutes, and in the end, I had to say, I'm sorry, man. We gotta park the call, and when the thing finishes, get back to me, and we'll figure it out. And he had to call back many minutes later to find out where it was. And I thought, well, goodness gracious me, it's been 15 years since I've seen a computer search that slowly. Isn't there something better to make this computer search faster? And as I'm waiting for his search to complete, I found the answer. So if this helps you, maybe this will get you there. So what you do is you come up under here and you go to indexing options. So, and the way I got there, by the way, this is a good shortcut just in general, and let me actually switch the screen so you can see what I'm doing. So click on Start and just start typing whatever you're looking for. So in this case, INDEX, indexing options. And in this case, this takes you to where Windows is storing the index of all its stuff. Now, this might surprise you, because it surprised me, is that Windows by default doesn't index your whole drive. It only indexes certain locations on your drive. And if you've got more than one drive, it by default doesn't index those at all. Take a moment right now, while you're thinking about it, go to your indexing options, go up under Modify, and tell it to index all your drives for everything. You will thank me. And unfortunately, what it has to do, go away and do something else. And at some point, page 383 million, and Zot is right there. I just go to the index, go look for Z, look for Zot, boom, done. Right? Without an index, what your computer has to do is it says, okay, well, I got 5 million files to look through. Okay, let's start with number 1. Is that Zot? No. Number 2? No. Number 3? No. Repeat and so forth for the next hour or so, and eventually you come up with, oh, hey, there's Zot way down there. But it had to look through every single file in particular because it didn't have that index. Anyway, do yourself a favor. Go ahead and let your computer index stuff, and like I say, afterwards, it won't do it right away. It'll wait till you're not busy, because it's a pretty disk-intensive sort of thing to do. So it'll wait for periods where your computer isn't doing anything else. Come back in about a day. Look for any damn thing you can think of. And I was picking weird words at random that people were suggesting. So we got Zot and Zwana and all sorts of weird foo. That was what the test was before this thing. So anyway, that's that. Hopefully this helps someone out somewhere. So anyway, yeah, we'll pick this up another time. Let me do a quick check here. John says, I run along laptop says on the 6x2 grid. Yeah, I'm going to say it's purely a function in that case of what the size of your monitor is. So if you resting, and so anyway, a fixed deal. Okay, so Craig says, is there a day of the week you can check to see if your points have been updated, e.g. every Thursday? Honestly, you can check any day. Our editors work, 5 days a week. Just like normal folks, they try to get everything done before the they do as much as they humanly can before they push the update every week, but they're working at this stuff pretty much constantly. But if you submit an update and you're not seeing your points move over after a week, send a note to support@comicbase.com and say, hey dude, what's up? I'm